Hello YouTube, my name is Elise. I'm coming at you guys with another video, and this time I'm going to talk about the top 5 things as my advice to military spouses. So for me, I've been a military spouse for about 9 years, and there's just some things that I've picked up on that's really been useful for me throughout the years. And I've also been in a military family my whole life, so I kind of picked up on a lot of things. So those are the things I'm going to go over with you. Number 1, so this may seem very basic and simple, but military bases. A lot of installations are different. Some don't have all the things that I'm about to list, but if you go to a larger base like Fort Liberty, or you go to Schofield in Hawaii, or you go to Wheeler in Hawaii, you'll see these things on base, and it is generally the same between like the Marines, the Navy, Air Force bases. You'll kind of see the same thing. What that means is that you'll see a commissary, which is where you can go to get your food from. That is a grocery store for people who don't know what commissary is. And then you also have your schools. There's schools on bases for kids to go to. Some bases have all 3 schools, elementary, middle, and high school on base. And there's also housing on base. There could be multiple communities that you could live in. And lots of times it is based on the rank of the soldier, how many years they've been in, and how many dependents they have, which some bases have almost solely gone to how many dependents they have. Like, for example, in Fort Leonard Wood, it is heavily dependent on how many dependents you have of what house you can qualify for. And then the next thing is on military bases, usually there's a post exchange or Marine Corps exchange, Navy exchange, Air Force exchange. There's some type of exchange on the installation. And what that is shopping that you can do on base for all your basic necessities. It usually has, everything you need, and you can go shopping and it's tax-free. There's restaurants on base, so you'll have kind of your classic restaurants for military bases, your Burger King, Popeyes. Like, I don't think I've been to a base yet without a Popeyes. Like, they all have Popeyes. And you have gas stations on base, you have daycare on base, playgrounds, everything. So it's kind of a place where they try to make it where you can live on base and you don't have to leave base for anything. They try to have all your basic necessities on the military installation. My advice is to get involved in the community. Be familiar with the military community, some of the lingo that's used, what your spouse does in the military or what you do in the military. Really be familiar with those things, because a lot of the times, like if you have a spouse that get deployed, then if you don't know where they work at, you need a Red Cross message, it could be very difficult to track them down. There's a lot of different units on base and a lot of people that may have the same name as your spouse. And now you're trying to track this person down, and it could be very difficult. So I would suggest to get involved in the communities. And it also helps when they're away and they have like events for spouses. For example, like when my spouse was deployed, they had like FRG events to kind of tell you what resources were available to you and give you information about the deployment and kind of keep you in the know. So it is very helpful to be involved in the community. Some communities don't do it so well, do it better than others, but it is good to be involved just so you know what's going on base. I've seen spouses who don't know anything about the military, and they're kind of like, oh, my spouse is in the military, I have nothing to do with it. But to me, that's not a good approach, because the military does have a huge effect on your life as well. Even though you're the spouse of the service member, it still has a huge effect on your life. For example, when you move, your PCS moving, and you don't know what's going on. You don't even care to ask the questions because you're not in the military. So taking that stance can be very limiting for a person and can be very frustrating. And I've seen it before, spouses say that, And it is a very frustrating place to be when you actually need something and you can't get it because you have disassociated yourself with anything military, even though your spouse is in the military. It's not a good approach in my opinion. Number 3, learn the resources that are available to you. So on base, you have your financial readiness, which helps you with, your finances. It'll go over, kind of just, we went there one time. It helps you with like a budget if you're struggling with money, or not even if you're struggling, you just want to figure out how to create a budget. They'll help you with that. There's also other resources for children on base. So sometimes during they'll have summer camps at the youth centers, different activities for kids to do on base to keep them occupied and give them something to do. So just learn those different resources. A best way to get those resources, a lot of times if you have questions and you want to ask other military spouses about what's going on, what I found helpful was joining the Facebook page for military spouses. Everywhere I go, I join the Facebook page. And the reason I do that is because I'm able to ask questions up there, or not even ask questions, but usually somebody else has already asked it, and you can search it up and be like, oh, okay, somebody's already asked this before. And so you get a lot of answers, especially when you're PCSing and you don't know things. It is a lifesaver because you start learning things and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I can apply this. And, or, oh yeah, this is helpful going to the next base, especially when we move to Hawaii. It's so much it's so much you need to know. And if you don't know it, sometimes your spouse doesn't know it. And so somebody else may know it. So keeping those resources available to you, knowing where to go to get the answers to your questions is always going to be helpful. Number 4 is when you're going and you're PCSing to different places, do your research. Do your research. Research the area, research the state that you're going to, research the schools, research everything, because a lot of these places are extremely different. For example, me and my husband, we first started off in the DC area. Then we went to Missouri, completely different than DC, completely different. Then we went to, after that, went to North Carolina, and now we're in Hawaii. All very different places. It's like night and day, everywhere we've been to so far. It's completely different. And so when you're going to these different places, it's always good to research where you're going to live. If you want to live on base, if you don't want to live on base, if you want to use your GI Bill, to go to school around in that area, or if you want to use your VA loan and get you a house, make sure that that you're really prepared for all the places you go to, especially if you're moving in the middle of the school year. All those things can be extremely difficult. So I would definitely do my research. Do your research even on utilities, because here in Hawaii, utilities can be extremely high. So do your research when you move, because you'll learn those things maybe actually living on base is the better option, So I would never suggest going into somewhere blind. Do your research, be in the know, ask questions to your spouse, because they probably went to a million briefings and and may have some notes that can help you. So make sure you're asking all the questions. Make sure you're in the know doing the research. Number 5, very last thing, is learn to keep yourself occupied as a military spouse, because it can be very lonely at times. And it can be very stressful, especially if you have kids. And it's then you're the sole person. You almost become a single parent overnight. And it can be very difficult to adjust to. So keep yourself occupied, have your own hobbies, have your own things that you do. For me, I work, I have a job, that I take care of my son, and then I have the things that I do. And so just learn how to keep yourself occupied, keep things going. And I see a lot of spouses fall into depression when their spouse leaves and things like that, and they're worrying about it and trying to get answers. A lot of the times, the thing about it, you think that the army is withholding information from you, or they're not trying to tell you, but a lot of times they don't know themselves. Make sure that you are that you are keeping yourself occupied, not worrying too much about what's going on or what you don't know. You got to kind of just let it go with the flow, and let the chips fall where they may. So that's my whole advice for military spouses. Take it, leave it. If you guys have any advice that you would like to share with me, share it on my comments. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys for watching.